What's Potion? You got Matt here, and welcome to another video. I am coming to you when I just got back home from the Montreal regional happening on January 6th, as I have one of my cats here joining us for the video today. This is Shadow, for those of you who don't know. But we ended up coming in 26th place at the Montreal regionals, good for top 32. It gets our invite, and just in case you didn't know, this was my very first time attending a regional ever. So in this video, I'm going to give you my deck profile, but I'm also going to give you my thoughts on the regional experience entirely, and to tell you why I think if you haven't gone to one, you should definitely go to one right now. And of course, I'm going to give some big, massive shout outs to quite a few different people. But of course, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more amazing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. You're going to learn how to play the game here, how to beat some of the best decks in the format, learn how to play those decks, and of course, also get some awesome tier lists for different cards in the format. And of course, leave a like on the video as well if you guys want to see a combo guide. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the actual deck profile. I played today BYSTIAL RUNICK, and it was my first time playing the deck in paper. I had a really good time with it, and we're going to start off, of course, with the main copies of the deck, being 3 copies of the Guiding Clem the Virtuous. Such an amazing card. I really want to see this in every single hand. Really was the reason why the deck could function the way I wanted it to, so I was very happy to have this card here. Shout out to both Simo and Angelo at my locals for being able to lend me an extra copy of these cards I desperately needed, or else I would not have been able to play this deck. We also have 3 copies of the incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. Not only is it a tuner as well, which is nice, but it's also able to be special summoned, going second pretty easily, which is really nice too, because it can then give me access to the copy of the Golden Sword Soul, which essentially represents 2 tuners itself, and the copy of either Ecclesia or Quem. Also, it's great because if it's on my opponent's turn, I've already used Quem, it's in my graveyard or in my hand, I can always just banish it from field or graveyard to be able to get Quem back on my side of the field, to be able to send another card from deck to graveyard as well, which is really nice. That's going to be it though for our main tuners here, our main ones I should say. That's very important here. But we also have, of course, our Bystial package now with 3 copies of the Bystial Lubellion. Really important, got me able to see pretty much everything that I want to. All my Bystials in the strategy was really strong to be able to allow me to get access to Branded Regain, but also to make some really strong options for the synchro pool. So very happy again having this at 3 copies. I think at 3 copies it is mandatory. Actually, I would say 2 copies is mandatory. 3 is a luxury depending on the format, but for right now I'm happy with the 3. I'm also playing 2 copies of Saramangreat. I felt like Saramangreat again is another solid card here. Should I be playing it at 2? It depends. I think at 2 copies it's a little bit much. The second one was the 40th card in the deck. I could have swapped it out for something else, but I felt that having the second Saramangreat was really nice, giving me access to another chance to see Lubellion, and it honestly came up quite a bit. We also have the 1 copy of the Bystial Magnamut, the 1 Druisworm, and the 1 Baldrake, as well as the 1 copy of the Bystial Aluber. These cards here are all important. The Bystial Aluber is great because it is a level 4 tuner that is searchable off of the Bystial Lubellion, which is really nice. And of course, being a dark monster is really good because you can banish it, and then being able to get the recovery off of Regained is really good too. And then of course, Magnamut mandatory, Druisworm mandatory, Baldrake. It depends. It really depends on the format you're in. And then of course, our final 2 cards in the Bystial engine are going to be 2 copies of Branded Regain. This card is so good. You need to play this card at 2 copies. It has to be done that way. If it's not, then you're going to have a really hard time recurring resources, especially if it gets taken away, which does happen quite a bit. And if you draw it in your opening hand, you're actually pretty happy about that. So I'm really happy with this ratio for the copies of my Bystials. Moving on though to our hand traps, we have 3 copies of Ash Blossom as our only hand trap in the main deck, and honestly it performed really well, great against so many different strategies. I really want to see this as much as I could, and drawing it off of something like Fountain or Regained was really good. Moving on to our Runick package, we have of course the 2 copies of Runick Fountain being the main card in the Runick strategy, getting us access to the additional draws, which are really important. We also have the 3 copies of Runick Tip, which are also really good. These cards are able to get us to search, getting us the additional banish is really nice too. 3 copies of Freezing Curses, as well as 3 copies of Flashing Fire, 3 copies of Destruction, 3 copies of Slumber here, and the 1 Smiting Storm, and the 1 Dispelling. That is going to be the 40 cards in our deck. So I am playing 17 Runick Quick Play spells. I was playing 15 for a really long time in other builds of Runick, but honestly, looking back at it now, 17 is the way to go. Dispelling and Smiting Storm, they don't come up often for their actual effects, but they are ways to be able to get access to additional names. So you're not always drawing the same ones. If you, for example, already used Tip or Flashing Fire in the same turn, then you can't use it again. Having Smiting Storm or Dispelling is nice to be able to get you additional copies of cards in the graveyard that you can then recycle with the copy of Fountain. But that's going to be it. I'm really happy with the ratio for the main deck. We're going to go ahead and move on now to the extra deck, which is going to be, again, really solid here. You're going to see there's a lot of familiar things here, but also a few different cards you may not expect. Of course, we have the 2 copies of Hugin and the 1 Gary and the 1 Sleipnir as part of our Runick engine. Really strong here. The Hugins are insane in this strategy. Recycle them all the time. It is the best card to banish off of a Bystial when you have regain setup, because you can then put it back into your deck, which is so critical to the success of what the strategy tries to do. We then have our synchro starting off with the level 6s. We have the 1 Tri-Edge Master as our level 6 non-tuner synchro. We have our Coral Dragon, the level 6 tuner synchro. That's also a dragon, so we can get into Dispatter off of this. Both these cards get us a draw in their own way. We then have the 1 Scarlight. This is here not for the effect to be able to do damage, but it's here because without a battle phase in this deck, you have to have a way to be able to do damage to your opponent and actually do something that can remove cards from the field. So having Scarlet as a pseudo Raigeki / Dark Hole is really nice, so I want to have this in the deck, of course, even though we are not playing Duality. Moving on, we have our level 10 Synchros in the 1 copy of Barone, the 1 Bystial Dispatter, the 1 Chaos Angel, and the 1 Changing. Honestly, Changing is the least important out of all of these, but I would say that all 4 of them are mandatory to play in the deck if you want to play it at the best possible level. I think that these are so good. I go into Dispatter every game. I go into Chaos Angel pretty much every game that I need access to it, and then I go into Barone every single game as well. Changing is a bit more of a corner case, but still really important. We then have our 2 copies of SP Little Knight. I think this is a bit overkill. I just didn't have access to a Centurion Legatia, so I want to play something that was going to be still really strong, and I decided to go with SP Little Knight. And then, of course, we have the 1 Mud Dragon in the Swamp and the 1 copy of Garura. These are here for Super Poly, which is going to be in the side deck. Speaking of the side deck, let's go ahead and do that right now. So the side deck is going to be 15 cards here. We have 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, an amazing card in this matchup. We have 3 copies of Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion, which is great, especially into the Labrynth matchup, which is really good. We have 3 copies of Denko Sekka here exclusively for Rescue Ace, which is this deck's hardest matchup in my opinion, and I had a really hard time against that, especially in round 8. We have 3 copies of Super Poly, which is there to help with the Fire King matchup and the Rescue Ace matchup, which are both very difficult. And then just in case we need to have a bit more life points in a right situation, we have 3 copies of Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. So that is going to be our deck profile. We have a really good showing, and now I'm just going to go ahead and start talking about not the deck itself, but how we actually performed. And I have quite a few different things I want to talk about, so I felt like it was important to actually write my notes down, have what I want to talk about here. So I'm going to talk about just the actual event itself and what it all looked like and how I kind of felt playing in a regional for the first time, for those of you who are unsure, but if they want to take on something like this. But basically, regional was 8 rounds. We had 220 people there, which was the biggest regional in Montreal apparently in over 5 years, which is awesome to hear. Really good that we're having the community grow in Montreal. Round 1 is supposed to start at like 10 o'clock. It started at 11:30, so it was quite a while. But round 1, I win the dice roll. We're going up against Punk Virtual World, and this is a really interesting matchup because I actually don't have, and there's no lights or darks outside of like Foxy Tune for me to banish to be able to take advantage with my Bystials or take advantage with Regained or SP, for example. So it was a little bit interesting, but game 1 I was able to out advantage him pretty easily because I had access to my quick effects, which could banish the trap cards, which are going to be really nice to be able to allow me to prevent him from actually resolving his effects to send cards to the graveyard and summon out other cards. Game 2, I was able to pretty easily win that one as well because of the Bystials. I was able to Bystial actually the Foxy Tune, which worked out really well for me, and then I could set up 2 level 10 synchros and just win the game from there. So we ended up going 2-0 win there and winning round 1. Round 2, we end up having the dice roll lost, but we're playing against Volcanic, Horus, Sinful, Spoils. And look, first thing I want to say about this is the person I played against was such a nice guy. We had a really good back and forth, a good banter, honestly a really cool guy. I had a nice time of just chatting with him about the actual event itself and the format too, which was really cool. But game 1, his Horus engine is just way too strong for me to deal with. I didn't have the necessary cards to be able to get rid of the Msetti with the popping, the Happy with the adding back, and the Duamutep with the drawing of the cards. It was just way too much for me to deal with, and at that point I just said, you know what, let's go game 2. Game 2 though, with my Runick engine, I was able to banish a lot of different cards he had in his strategy, and because of that, he had a hard time actually playing the game. And also, I had a situation where I was able to Droll his Volcanic Shell add. So when he used Volcanic Shell to add another Volcanic Shell, I hit him with Droll, and then he just couldn't really play the game. I hit him with like 1 more Ash or something on like a Sent to Graveyard or whatever it was, and then the game was over from there. So I felt really good about that. But game 3 was really good. This one here, I'm gonna chat a bit for at least a little bit. This was absolutely incredible because there was so much going on in this game. Basically, he goes first, he's comboing off, and after 1 interruption, he ends on, which is kind of a lackluster board, is just Heat Soul pass, and that's not that good, but my hand has Super Poly in it, and it's dead now because he had only Heat Soul, which is a little unfortunate. But he interrupts my main Runick line, and basically the only thing I can do is make a level 10 synchro, and I'm deciding, do I want to go with Barone or do I want to go with Changing, because I don't want to go into Chaos Angel just yet. I also feel like he has quite a bit of back row that can actually do damage to me, and of course having access to the Pharaonic Sarcophagus, that's the word, is able to out Chaos Angel pretty easily, so I feel really good about going into Changing for that reason. And honestly, that was the right decision because I set Super Poly, I declare Battle Phase, and Battle Phase, he goes to his turn, and then he's going to go ahead and Normal Summon Shell. And I'm thinking, I really don't want him to have any opportunity to go into something like the Underworld Goddess to get rid of my Changing. So here I'm going to go for the Super Poly. I go Super Poly, I send a random card, I think it was a random Runick card that I couldn't activate because I didn't have Fountain set up, and I was able to go into Mudragon of the Swamp, which was insane because its and Changing are both waters, meaning neither can be targeted with card effects. And that's so big because he couldn't actually beat over the Changing. So he passes turn back and he has like Hida on board, and Hida the Fire Charmer, the Link one, and then he also has some like Volcanic Trooper there, and or maybe the big Volcanic Emperor, whichever one it is, the really big one. And I basically go to Battle Phase because I draw Runick Destruction off the top of the deck here. It's the only card I have in my hand. I go to Battle Phase, I attack with Changing into his Hida to do some damage. He searches for something insignificant. I go and attack with the copy of Mudragon of the Swamp into the defense position Volcanic. I chain the effect of Destruction to the attack declaration, destroying his back row, banishing 4 cards, triggering the effect of Changing to then banish his copy of the Volcanic Emperor, and whichever the Volcanic was, again, not too sure if that was the one or not, and banish a card in the graveyard, and I can swing for lethal with the Mudragon as time is called, basically. It was an incredible game. I was really happy with how that worked out, and honestly, just from that one game alone, Super Poly was an absolute godsend of a card to add to this deck in the side deck, so shout out to Simo as well for helping me with that suggestion as well. It worked out amazing. Next up, though, was going to be round 3 against Labrynth, and this is the only person I've actually played before this tournament here. Really nice guy. He destroyed me with Labrynth at an OTS championship. I think it was right before, it was actually the championship right before Kashtira Rysar got banned, and he crushed me. But in game 1, my Bystials are able to just kind of take care of business as well as chaining my Runick spells to his trap effects, and because I had a quick win. Game 2, every single time had Runick Fountain try to activate a resolve. He had either Cosmic Cyclone or Ash Blossom, or Ghost Bell even, which kind of just shut me down, so I kind of had to say, you know what, it is what it is, let's go to game 3. And in game 3, it was a really back and forth game, but eventually he gets me to use all my interruptions, and he has 2 cards in hand. I have 1 card in hand. My 1 card in hand is a Ghost Bell. And then he just says, you know what, activate Kuplok, sets a card. I'm like, okay, if this is Big Welcome Labrynth, I win. If it's Welcome Labrynth, I lose. Flips it up, it's Big Welcome Labrynth, and we take the W from there. So we end up getting a win. We are now 3-0 on the day, and now we go to round number 4. And round 4, we're playing against Vanquish Soul. And we win the dice roll, which is great, but our opponent is Steven Santoli. And you guys might have known that name. He is one of the best players right now. He has multiple different YCS wins just last year. And honestly, I was really not intimidated, but I was like, okay, I know who he is. I know he's going to be good, and I just have to play well or else I'm not going to have a chance to win. So I'm really focused. We sit down, we get deck checked, and then game 1 starts, and draw phase, Shifter. Okay, he's on Cash. Nope, he's on Vanquish Soul the entire time. He OTKs me on the next turn, and I couldn't really do much. Game 2, draw phase, Shifter. It is what it is. It happens. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's a pretty big chance to see them in a 40-card deck. But honestly, the most important part about this, I don't want to talk about the game itself because, 1, I got destroyed. There's not much, like, there's a bit that I could have learned from it, but at the end of the day, what I want to focus on more was the opportunity I had to actually speak with Steven, which was really kind of eye-opening. We see what it's like to have a really good player just play the game and do really, really well with multiple YCS tops. And he was nice enough to just, after the game ended, stay at the table with me. We were just chatting about the formats, chatting about his experiences in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, how long he's been playing the game, how long I've been playing the game, and it was really, really nice to get his thoughts. Honestly, this event was really good because the best way to put this is this. Whenever we talk about people playing Yu-Gi-Oh or competitive Yu-Gi-Oh in general, we always talk about people who are really good, or the content creators who go to these events and, oh yeah, you know, they are signing cards, doing this, doing that, doing whatever, and they're competing at a high level. Steven took the time after the games were over, after our round was over, after pretty much every single round was over, that we ended up bumping into each other, being like, stopping me, saying, hey, how was your round, how did it go? And we just chatted for a good quick minute or 2, and it was really nice to see. Really cool guy. He had a couple of friends there with him. I believe my round 2 opponents, the Volcanic guy, I believe his name was Thomas. He was also part of his friend group, and honestly, they were all really nice and really open to just chatting with me, which was awesome to see. Anyways, the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's so awesome to see not only a player like Steven who is good at the game, or a player like Joshua Schmidt, or a player like Jesse Cobb, who are really good at the game, but they're also really nice enough to take the time out of their day, out of their schedule, out of their competitive event to at least try and improve the community at least a little bit, which is awesome to see. So for that reason, I think that this community is really, really good, and I'm happy to see that. So again, makes me really proud to be part of it. Anyways, moving on though to round number 5 rather. We are now 3-1. We're up against Salamangreat, and we won the dice roll. Again, another really nice guy we're playing against, but honestly, he just couldn't keep up with the deck here. We had too much advantage. Yeah, I know we are going against a fire-based strategy, but game 1, I just was able to set up my entire board, couldn't really break it. Game 2, I had Super Poly for his, I think it was his Salamangreat Jaguar and the new Link 4 Salamangreat monster, and we were just able to win the game from there. And honestly, I was able to Super Poly him twice that game because I had regained, banished my Garua, sent it back to the extra deck. Anyways, it worked out really well. 2-0 win. We are now 4-1. Going to round 6, we're up against Purrely, and this is another dice roll loss, our second one of the day. And game 1, honestly, Purrely is my worst matchup in terms of just how much I know about the deck, because I have a really hard time grasping what that deck wants to do to the best level, and because of that, it makes things tough. So game 1, I misplayed a little bit. This is when kind of the fatigue is all starting to get to me because I had 2 copies of Ecclesia in my hand, and I drew Quem for turn, and he had like the Noir on field and just the Noir on field with like 1 hand trap or something. And what do I decide to do for some reason? I normal Quem, completely forgetting to just special summon Ecclesia, which would have turned on my entire deck and give me so much more of a chance because I think he only had 5 material on his Noir at that point. So it just made things a little bit tough, but it is what it is. Anyways, game 2, he takes win game 1. Game 2, it's a real grind game. He misplays, I misplay. We have a really hard time just kind of getting the game going, and with time called in the round, I am up by like a couple hundred life points, and we end up taking a draw for that reason. So it ends up being a draw, so our record is now 4-1-1. Moving into round number 7, and honestly, round 6 was just so hard. I felt like I need to play that better, and honestly, it was kind of what made me think I might not top this tournament. And but we ended up going round 7, and we kind of brought it back. We go up against Branded Chimera, win the dice roll. Pretty straightforward game 1, able to Ashes Branded Fusion and just have negates with Barone and Dispatter set up from there, so we're in a good position. And then game 2, real big grind game, but he had used all 3 copies of Branded Fusion, and I had Ash for every single one of them, which was, I feel bad, but I mean, like, I'm drawing so many cards, like, it doesn't matter too much that, like, the variance is gonna kind of even itself out. Anyways, we get the win, 5-1-1, really worked out well. And if we win round 8, we end up getting top 8, winning the playmat, but you guys know we didn't do that. We ended up taking a loss round 8. Round 8, we're going up against Rescue Ace for the first time all tournament in a really diverse format. And game 1, we're playing the game, first off, really nice guy as well. He's from, I think he's from Mexico. He ended up finishing top 4. Really nice guy. His Ash was insane against my copy of the Fountain. It went such a long way. I was able to set up at least like a Barone and a Dispatter through like with regained, but no ability to use the Runick cards, and it was really, really difficult because I couldn't recycle my resources back. But basically, he set up a Barone because he had used, I think he used the HQ to normal summon out a copy of Rescue Ace, and then he normal summoned a copy of Ash Blossom after sending the Rescue Ace to summon out the HQ rather, to summon out the Diabellstar. He synchroned the Ash and the Diabellstar into Barone, and that forced out my interruption. Game 2, I was able to do a bit more, and honestly, it was turn 3, and I just slapped down Denko Sekka, and he's like, whoa. I saw his eye just widen, like, whoa, my god, what am I supposed to do this? He read the card again, realized he couldn't do much, and scooped it up. We went to game 3 with like 6 minutes on the clock or something, and I had a hand that was like Quem, Golden Sword Soul, and 2 Bystials. And they were like Saronir and Druid's, which are like the least useful for the current situation. If it was like Saronir and Baldric, that would have been really nice for me, but it wasn't. The only thing I could do was he ended up going for the line with Wanted that got him access to Jet Synchron, and he was able to get the Link Revo and Burrow with Savage Dragon. But when he used the Savage Dragon targeting the Link Revo, I was able to banish it with the Saronir, which was nice. And then he was able to just go off from there with his Turbulence set 4. My draw for turn was another copy of Quem. I just couldn't do anything from there. So I tried doing one more thing with a Druid's Worm in the end phase, in the draw phase rather, and I was able to get my Lubellium in the graveyard, but he was able to get rid of it because of, I think he had a copy of Rescue or something set. Anyways, he ended up taking that game, shook hands, he got top 4, we finished 26th, and honestly, it was great. The entire event was really good. I have my notes here in front of me in case I keep looking down, guys. But overall, it was an amazing experience. Just a really, really solid way. I played against 5 players who made top 32, which is awesome. 2 of them made top 4, which is great to see. But I learned a lot, and that was the big thing. I can't wait for the next event that I'm going to be able to go to, whether it's going to be on the regional or a YCS, or whatever the case is going to be. But obviously, I could not have gone to this point to a win. I know it's not a not the most insane accomplishment in the world. Top 26 at regional, 26th place at regional is not the most incredible thing, but for my first regional ever, I am really happy with that. But I do want to thank a couple friends here. I want to thank, of course, my buddy Simo and Angelo, who were able to provide us with additional copies of cards that we desperately needed for being able to play this deck, of course being the Quems most notably, and of course to all of the people in our local scene at Geek & Co. So shout out to Geek & Co. in Montreal. I don't want to name absolutely everyone because it would take so long, but guys, thank you so much. I really do appreciate all of you. And of course to my amazing wife, Julia, who's behind the camera. She's actually over there right now getting ready for an event, but she was behind the camera for majority of this discussion. So I want to thank her as well for being super supportive of me and at least giving me the opportunity to try and pursue this, which is obviously amazing. And I do want to say a few other things about just if you're debating about playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Competitively outside of your local scene. So honestly, do not doubt your ability to go to regionals. You may not perform well. I was not expecting to go in and top. I was not expecting to go in and perform well, but I was expecting to go in and learn a lot, and I did. I was expecting to go in and try to see a bit more what the community is like, and it was a great time. So I would highly recommend, if you are thinking about it, go to see a regional, go to play in a regional or a YCS or whatever, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. There's a ton of side events as well if you haven't gone already, so definitely check it out. Now, if you guys do want to see more content from yours truly, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. I know you guys would be wanting to see stuff like how to beat certain decks. For example, if you want to learn how to beat the Runick Bystial deck, I posted a video on that on Saturday, so make sure to go and check it out. Ironically, it was going live when I was in my round 2 matchup, so that's pretty funny to say. Anyways, if you guys haven't already, make sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 7,500 subscribers. I'll teach you how to beat decks, what the best decks of the format are, tier lists, all that stuff that you're going to really enjoy. And of course, leave a like on the video if you haven't already. If you guys hit, I'll say 150 likes on the video, then I'll bring you a combo guide for this deck here. There are a ton of different combo guides out there already, but if you want one from me exclusively, then of course make sure to smash the like button. And finally, if you haven't already, make sure to check the description. I have a link to my Twitter and my Twitch. I'm planning to stream more often, and I'm also planning to release some exclusive content on Twitter as well. So make sure to follow me on both those platforms. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next time.